Hey everyone, it's Ron Toy with the Ron Toy team, Cross Country Mortgage, coming to you live, wanting to bring the market update. So let me show you what's going on in the market, the things to key in on so that you can have a great conversation this week with your loan officer. If you're not working with one, feel free to reach out, but let me show you what's going on. So this is the bond market. Right now, let me get out the way. Right now, the market is flat at 100.92. As you can see, since the beginning of July, we've gone up almost 250 basis points. This is fantastic news. The Fed is talking about cutting the Fed fund rate on the 18th. This is going to be awesome. We've also going to have some really important reports coming out this week, which we'll go over here in a second on the next slide. But with the current situation right now, we're seeing a rebound. This is saving people so much money, and I'm going to go over that as well, because right now in the graphic that's on my live is going to be important. This is the mortgage market. This is what drives rates. You want to look on the left, the UMBS 30-year 5.5% coupon. That's pretty much what everybody's trading on. Why it's important? You want to ask when you're getting a quote from a lender, what is the bond market price and coupon that this rate is attached to? That way, so when you're contacting another loan officer, you ask that question, you're able to compare apples to apples. Let me show you the next slide. All right. Let's get it. Here's the economic calendar. Boom. I'll get out the way again so you can see. This is going to be a busy week. We've got PCE coming out on Friday. That's the Fed's favorite measure of inflation. Jobless claims on Thursday. The Treasury auction on Wednesday. This whole week is going to be awesome. Tuesday's got a bunch of stuff that could really impact the market. Screenshot this so you have it. Why this stuff is so important, why I talk about this every week, is so that realtors who follow me and lenders who follow me understand what to reach out to clients about. Hey, I saw this guy on TikTok. He was sharing some information. These are the economic reports that are coming out this week that could really impact your rate. So let's go ahead and see the next slide, because this is what's really cool about the market and opportunities. Let me show you. Boop, boop, boop. Where is it at? Here we go. I'm going to get out the way. So this article, go check it out, is amazing. But consumers got $600 billion back in for having their mortgages. But what I wanted to show you is that 40% of homeowners have no mortgage right now. There's so much equity built up in properties. Homes have appreciated over 60% since 2020. This is amazing information. But as rates continue to come down, incentivize some of these people that locked in at 4s and 5s, they are going to want to sell. And now they have a bunch of equity. That means they're going to be entering the market with a ton of cash, similar to like what happened in 2020 and 2021, where people were bidding considerably over list. And we're seeing that right now here in Dallas, that a lot of homes that were listed had price adjustments earlier, but now the interest rates are dropping. Because keep in mind, every 1 point drop in rate brings another 2 to 3 million buyers back to the market. So this is important information. But there's so much equity in homes, and nobody's talking about this in the right light, because what does that mean? We're still tight on inventory. But when people come to the market and are able to sell and they have all this cash from their home because they have equity, think about it. 40% of Americans have a paid off home. This is huge. Right now, the average equity position across the country is about 60%. So when they sell, that's cash that they're going to have to be able to enter the market and bid over list if they need be. And so this is why I like to share this, to help people get ahead of some of these things so that they're ready to go when the time is right. Because luck, the Seneca's quote about, in essence, this is not the direct quote, but it's like luck favors the prepared. When you're prepared and opportunity come together, that's when people call you lucky. But this is what we want to get ahead of. I don't want people calling you lucky. I want you to be prepared and understand that you're ready to take over in those moments. Another thing, if you're a realtor, I have a lunch and learn coming up. You want to email Lindsay. It's on the 28th at Capital Title at their Willow Bend location. If you can see it, it's right there. I do these classes. There we go. It's a little bit better on that view. I do these classes monthly, usually the last Wednesday of the month. So if you're a realtor, lender, sales professional, you want to join us, Capital Title, RSVP Lindsay to save your seat. Seating is limited. But right now I want people to be going into the end of the third quarter, into the fourth quarter with confidence that they're going to crush it. So join me at that lunch and learn. I'm happy to teach and show people scripting and programs that are available to help people crush the this end of the year. But yeah, again, I'm going to start doing these lives more frequently because it's important. With the way the market's moving, the way the bond market's moving, and interest rates, you're going to be inundated with information about refinancing. Maybe it's better to hold on a little bit longer before pulling the trigger on the refi, because you might be able to get in the high fives right now, low sixes, but maybe in a month or two, you might be able to get into the low fives or high fours, but you didn't have a loan officer willing to tell you, maybe wait, because a lot of people out here are hungry and they need that commission. And I'm not that person. You don't have to use me. I do this to help educate. But this is to help motivate you to, when you call your loan officer, to ask these questions. Hey, what's your rate lock strategy? If you're already under contract, you already locked your loan, contact the loan officer, be like, hey, what's our plan of attack if rates come down more, significantly more right now before we close? Because if you're on a new build and you're not closing for a month or two and you've already locked, well, most lenders can have what's called a float down option. So start proactively having these conversations so that you are not reacting to the market. And again, it goes back. People will call you lucky when you're prepared and the opportunity comes in front of you. And so this is what my channel is about, is to help empower people to make a buying or refinancing decision, whether you use me or not. There's plenty of business to go around. So right now, this is the least homes will ever be. I always share the same graphic, which I'm going to do again right now, about the home price appreciation data since 1942. This is important because think about all of the recessions, wars, drama, gas shortages, everything that we've experienced as a country since 1942. And to see the home price appreciation data is important. And I'm thumbing through the photos to get to it, but it takes me a second. There it is. I'm going to move my head out the way so you can screenshot this. This home price appreciation data since 1942. We're going to get home price appreciation data tomorrow from Case-Shiller and FHFA, which is important. 2023 home prices appreciated on average between 5 and 7%. The only time in our nation's history that home values went down in a drastic way was from 2007 through 2011. And why? We overbuilt for demand. There was lax lending guidelines. If you could fog a mirror, you could get a loan. There were stated income loans, balloon mortgages, all of this crap. There was horrible lending guidelines, and we overbuilt. And I'll show you that graphic next. But when you think about the timeline, since 1942, home price appreciation, the lack of inventory, which is going to be on the next slide, you're going to understand why home prices are not going to drop. Let me see if I can get this in a little bit tighter view. Yes, here. This is important graphic. Save this as well. This is birthing rates. You see that in 33 years old is about the average age a person enters the market. So when you see Generation X, 55 million people were born. It's a huge drop in population, but specifically right there in 1973, there's a huge drop. And you look at what happened in 2006, where you have the most homes built ever versus the housing formations. Housing formations is about when someone's entering the age to purchase a home. It's about 33 years old. So housing formations is the blue bar. Look at that huge disparity between formations, and the yellow bar is completions. This is why that time period, you see home prices drop. Look how much the disparity between formations and completions. But then that relationship gets flipped around 2015, and it's drastic. And we're still on trend for that. That's why inventory is low. We have way more people born in millennial generation, and it continues on. So we're not keeping up with demand. Back then, bad lending guidelines, overbuilt, and that's what led to that huge economic crisis. That won't happen again. There's regulations in place. So that's why I want to be out here, because I've seen too many freaking news outlets saying, oh, the home prices are going to drop. This is going to happen. No, it ain't. No. There might be housing corrections on online. That's because home prices went up so fast over the last few years. Like I just said, and since 2020, home prices have appreciated 60%. And so right now, maybe it's at 5 to 7%, but people might be still pricing based on what they thought the market was like in 2023, but they've cooled a little bit. But that's not prices dropping like where if you bought a $100,000 house, now the house is worth $97,000. No, the home might have been worth 20% more last year, but now it's only worth 18% more. But you still bought it for $100,000. So yes, your house is still worth $118,000. That you've made money over the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So that's where you got to look at it in a different perspective. That's why I'm here. Plus, a lot of people are nervous about the NAR settlement. If you're a buyer, you need to work with a great realtor and you need to have these conversations. Ask them, hey, because I teach realtors on how to convert at higher percentages, and I've been teaching them for years to do the buyer's rep agreement. The buyer's rep agreement has always been a thing. The commission has always been negotiable, and I have bought and sold multiple properties over the last 10 years. I bought one in 2023 and sold one in 2023, so I know what the current market is like. And when I bought my house, the reason why I bought when the rates were the highest is because when people are nervous, you get deals. So I got my house, it appraised for $50,000 over the list price, and the sellers paid like $23,000 of my closing costs. You would never see that in a market when rates were 4 and 5%. You're not. And so that's why I'm out here trying to explain opportunities to people to take advantage of the market, because this is the least expensive homes will ever be again. So instead of beating my head against the wall saying, oh, I wish home prices would come down, they're not. Appreciation rates might slow, and that's great. We want them to stay 5 to 7%. That's consistent. But when you start to see values like it happened in 2021 where they went up 19% in 1 year, it's a lot to deal with when, especially in a higher market like in Dallas and Los Angeles and New York and Boston, where home prices are, that median home price is near $1 million, and now all of a sudden it's like it goes up 20%. That's $200,000. And think about it, if it's a $300,000 house and it goes up 20%, that's $60,000. So now some of those entry level people that could buy that now are priced out of the market. But you can't bury your head in the sand. You have to be like, okay, I'm defining reality the way it is. I'm working the way I want it to be, but right now the reality is that home prices are what they are. And there are some plans to help bring that down, like building 3 million homes. That would help. Getting first-time home buyers the option of $25,000. That's great. We love this. But also the limiting corporations, hedge funds, private equity from buying up as much single-family residences as their little their little crazy heart's desire, because that's what's causing these home prices to go up as fast as they are. Is you have private equity going in and buying all the first-time home buyer properties, but they don't plan to release them back to the market. Because the typical buy cycle for a first-time home buyer, they're in their first home typically 3 to 6 years. Thank you everyone who's joining. Ron Toy with the Ron Toy team at Cross Country Mortgage, licensed residential mortgage loan officer. I help people get the financing they need to invest in residential property. But going back to what I was saying, when they typical buy cycle, first-time home buyer, they're in their home 3 to 6 years, meaning they get in their house, 3 to 6 years later, they're selling that property. So that property comes back to market. And so that helps with the inventory. But a investor group, a equity firm who buys a property, they're buying to hold. So then that property is now not coming back to market on a normal market cycle. And so when they're buying up all of the entry-level properties that normal people would be able to buy when they're starting out to build their own equity, it's put the market at a disadvantage because the inventory continues to drive the prices up, and they understand this. And when you look on cash return, which I shared this on most of my lives, cash on cash return, let's call it $10,000. $10,000 gets you 10,000 shares. This is hypothetical numbers. And you get a 10% rate of return, which we want 10% rate of return. And index funds over the last 30 years have averaged a 10% or better rate of return. But so that you make 10%, that means that year you made $1,000 off your $10,000 investment in stocks. That's great. We like this. But if you use that same $10,000 to buy a property at $300,000, you can do that, maybe even less because of down payment and closing cost assistance programs. But say 10,000 gets you into $300,000. And that property appreciates 10%, which we've seen in the history. It happens all the time. That means that house value goes up by the value price, the purchase price. So that's $330,000 now. So off of your $10,000 investment, you just made $30,000. So you have like a 300% rate of return. That is amazing. We love this and we want to see this all the time. That's why these hedge fund companies will go in and buy property, because they have to put 20% down. So that would be $60,000 for the down payment, right? Well, if it goes up by 10%, that's $30,000. They still made 50% rate of return on their money, which is significantly better than the 10% off index funds. This is why they're doing this. Plus, when they have vacancy, you can write the vacancy off on the taxes as a loss, meaning they can put whatever market price rent they want on there and say, oop, we were vacant X amount of days. Now they just had a huge, massive write-off for every property they own. And if you listen to Warren Buffett, he talks about, he's like, man, if I could, I'd buy up 1,000 properties. But he's like, but the only issue is the maintenance, the keeping up with it, the management. But now there's management firms that streamline that process, that work with these investors to make it easier to where they can buy up all the property. And it's terrifying. I think that investors like that, big time investors, not regular people, big time investors should not have any business in the residential real estate space. You want to be in commercial? Buy all the commercial you want. You want to buy all the multifamily? Buy all the multifamily. But stay out of the 1 to 4 space. That should be for regular people and regular size investors. Max it out, maybe 10, 20 homes, cool. If you're over that, then you become a large investor and now you're in a different bracket. You can't do this. But that will help, in my opinion. If I was in control of all the levers, that's what I would do. I would stop the ability for hedge funds and private equity buying for primary residence. Now, sure, if it hits an auction and it's been on the market 100+ days, something like that, where it's obvious that a regular person doesn't want it, maybe that's when they can buy those types of property. But seeing them come in and offer 20, 40, 50,000 over list on a first-time home buyer, and that makes it hard for a first-time home buyer to go in and enjoy that property and raise their family, that's wrong. And they're using money to price the people out of the market that deserve their homes. If you have questions, go ahead and put it in the comments. I'm Ron Toy with the Ron Toy team at Cross Country Mortgage, showing you what's going on in the market, why. Let me pull up the charts again for the people who just got here. Also, keep in mind, I post these on my YouTube channel after. But let me just show you this graphic again. And go search it out. Bloomberg put this out. Consumers got a $600 billion boost because they locked in their mortgages a few years ago, and they're under 5%. But if you look at it, over 40% of homeowners have no mortgage. Their homes are paid off. That's amazing. Right now, the average equity position is 60%. It's fantastic. Let me show you the markets. Right now, we're flat, which is great. But if you see, the market since the beginning of July have rebounded over 250 basis points, meaning rates have come down. The average rate now is in the 6s, low 6s. With seller concessions, you can get into the 5s and 4s, maybe even the 3s. And that's amazing. And here is the economic calendar of reports that's coming out that's going to help impact rates. PCE on Friday is going to be huge. That's the Fed's favorite measure of inflation. Thursday, jobless claims. That's going to be huge. Wednesday, of course, the Treasury auction. That can be big. And then on Tuesday, just screenshot it. This week is going to be busy. It's going to be huge. And I need you guys to pay attention so that you're ready for when it happens. Because, again, when you're looking at all of these things, and I mentioned it earlier, and it'll be on my YouTube if you missed it, go back and check that out. But Seneca has like a quote. It's called, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." I want you to be prepared for what happens in the market, so you're proactively planning. You don't have to use me. You can use whoever you want. Interview your loan officers. Interview your realtors. Make sure that they are aligned with your current and long-term goals. But like I said, this is information to help you be empowered to make a buying or refinancing decision. Don't get jacked up by somebody who can sell something and make it sound really great. Might not be. Reach out to people, interview them. Ask what if they've bought a property in the last 3 to 4 years. How many properties have they bought? How many properties have they sold? What got them in the business? Again, because this is not a transactional, it should not be a transactional business. Buying or selling a home is in the top 5 most stressful things a person does. Do it 2 to 3 times their whole life. On average, there's 8 companies and 32 people involved in every closing. That's why it's important to have a great loan officer and a great realtor on your side that communicate in a way that you agree with and align with so that it helps reduce the stress. And let's go. What's your opinion on Gen Z canceling Eminem for the rapper? Good luck, I would say. It's going to be an interesting challenge. Eminem has been huge for a long time. Let's see. But great question. It's important. Every generation has their own thing, and that's really cool. Their own vibe. I like how aggressive Gen Z is with making sure social issues are addressed and answered to. So I'm open, and I love that kind of energy. Like, if he's worthy to be canceled, cancel that guy. What's your opinion on canceling Gen Z? I don't want to cancel anybody. I'd like to listen to people. As a Gen Xer, I call myself a Gen Xer. I'm at the very late end of Gen X, but I relate mostly to them and a little bit of millennial. But I think that I grew up latchkey. I grew up not supervised, drinking out of the water hose. Street lights come on, you got to be in the house. There's announcements that come on the TV saying, do you know where your kids are? So, but that's where we're used to being reserved in our house, not bothering people. But then if we need to, we're also the generation that would settle fights outside and not online. And so it's interesting to blend these things together and see how Gen Z interacts and different generations with each other to team up and get things done. So I'm more of an open-minded type person and see the benefits in each generation, and also understanding that with each generation, the previous like unresolved trauma was transferred. And so like you got people that lived through depression who were hard up for money that put pressure on their kids to have certain different mindsets and work ethics and jobs and don't cry, don't show this. Then those people raised other kids because they had to go out and get jobs and do this thing. So they abandoned their kids at their homes by themselves. And then those kids were told to do certain stuff and so like these generational consistencies of trauma get passed down and resolved through the next one. And so then Generation X started teaching their millennial kids to do certain things a certain way. And then the next generation is teaching their kids to do a little bit better. So what I see from Gen Z, who's really about social, justice, which I love, is that they are ones that were provided a more encouraging environment to be vulnerable, to get mental health help, to be accepting of people and differences. And I think that's awesome. And I think that I wish more generations would have been taught that type of mental health focus than what we have been exposed to. So I hope it gets even wilder. I hope more and more people are socially conscious and tearing down old systems and structures that empowered a very small group of people. So that's my summary of what I think about canceling any generation and the term canceling itself. Like, if somebody did stuff that makes it to where they should be canceled, then they deserve to be canceled. If not, then it won't happen. But that's just my thoughts on it. But again, with the mortgage aspect of all of this, it was information that was hidden from a lot of people or kind of intentionally not taught in certain aspects. And it has really hurt our society as a whole, because you got to look at disparities in different socioeconomic positions across the country, and school taxes. When in certain areas, if the schools are funded by taxes in an area, and you have intentional design where it's over policing in areas, and not investments from the city, the community to invest in businesses and commerce, then that place starts to drop in value. So the taxes are less, and the education gets messed up. But then all of a sudden, Becky with the Starbucks and some Uggs goes in and wants to make it cute again, and it gets gentrified. And now those homes are going to go for $600,000 to $1 million, and everybody else who got screwed over time and pushed out of that community is looking back like, wow, why didn't anybody teach me how to do this to my own property? And I'm not going to be that one. I'm going to teach the ladies and men and families in those neighborhoods that are getting pushed out how to invest in their property, get renovation loans to do the same kind of work to their house so that they enjoy the equity growth, instead of some creepy investor who's going to knock on the door, try to give them $30,000 and then turn around and invest $100,000 into the house and then sell it for $6,000. It's deplorable. But people don't know what they don't know. And if nobody's bringing them information or presenting different ideas, then they can't get ahead. And that's why I do this. Whether you use me or not, it doesn't matter. I'm here to empower you to make a buying decision. There are down payment and closing cost assistance programs in almost every single state. In Texas, TSHAC, Seth, TDHCA. Most of us loan officers can do Chenoa and different options, which will give you some of them up to 5% to go towards the closing costs and down payment. If you can couple that with a seller credit, you can get a check back at closing for what's called POC costs, paid outside of closing. That's your earnest, option, and appraisal. So like I just had a client that closed last month that got a check back at closing for $3,500. That's amazing. They got into their home, they're building equity, because when you're in a home, you grow your equity position two ways. Forced savings through principal balance reduction. So every time you make your payment, portion of that goes to your principal balance, creating equity. The other way is through appreciation, which I shared that slide earlier. As your property appreciates, you're growing your equity position, which gives you the option to, if you put less than 20% down, great. Now, as your property appreciates, you can get rid of mortgage insurance without refinancing if you're in a conventional loan. But that's why you got to buy what you can buy and comfortably afford. Let me show you that one more time. The appreciation data. All right, it takes a second to get to that slide. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. Here's the home price appreciation data since 1942. It's important. You need to save that information, screenshot it. So when anybody tells you home prices are going to drop, you can call them a liar and say, where's your data? Where's your facts? Go look it up on Case-Shiller, BLS, all the places where you can aggregate data, whatever you want to see. Here's the facts. Take emotion out of it. This is what the properties do in the United States. If it was a bad investment, do you think hedge funds and private equity would be buying up 40% of the inventory? Follow the money. Think about it this way. BlackRock, Vanguard, all of these huge companies are the ones investing and buying up all the property. But look what they own. They own all the seeds in our country, or a big portion of it. They own the banks. They own everything. And so if we're not careful, they are going to do the exact same thing. When you have the same companies who own, like 5 companies own all the media outlets, of course they're going to push agendas that favor them because they want you to think home prices are going to drop so that they can go in and buy all the properties up while we're sleeping. And that is correct. That's because they want to control. I do not like anybody else being in control of me except for me. It's a pet peeve and I don't tolerate it. So I don't want it for anybody else either. So if I can empower you to make a buying decision and create equity, because equity, 2/3 of the wealth we have in our country is tied to the equity we have in homes. That is huge. And this is important. Be more for you. Like, you've got to see this and get aggressive with it because they are coming for it aggressively. In some markets, private equity bought up 40% of the homes that hit the market. And they have money to spend because they understand the cash on cash return and the stability of home price appreciation. But if they own the single family residences and they own the multifamily companies, like properties like big, huge apartment communities, and they own the banks, they now control rent prices. They can dictate, okay, if we want our home values to go up, we can drive rent prices up for apartments where it makes it too expensive to rent. So then we're going to come over here and now our home values go up. Okay, we want our rent prices to go up. Now let's hold our homes and maybe release a couple to the market. And now they're going to control it from all different directions. It sucks. My 5. Man, Angie, like being in a big rig and driving, you're seeing the country, you're making money, and you're saving on rent. Good. Make your money, save it, invest it, and exit strategy. Belize is looking real cool. Same thing with Thailand. But that's the part that's crazy. I started diving into this because I saw a TikTok, Be More For You. If you haven't researched this, go look up who owns the seeds for farmers. Like a farmer, if the seeds, like they plant a tree or plant a fruit, plant a whatever. I'm not a farmer, a wizard. I don't know how any of it works. But I saw a TikTok where the farmer was like, I don't even own the rights to my seeds. I can't harvest the next harvest without paying some kind of tax for the seeds. I was like, what? So you're telling me if I buy seeds and I plant this thing, I don't own the plant? I don't own the seeds that are on the plant? No, they don't. The companies own it. And you go look at who's the top 4 or 5 seed owners, and it all traces back to BlackRock and Vanguard and all these same companies. It's crazy. I had no idea. I saw it on TikTok. It's like, no way. You search it, absolutely way. And it's terrifying. If those companies, I did the research too, because I track data and facts and all this stuff because of my job. So I read every CPI report, PPI report, PCE report. I check birthing rates, all the things, right? And when I start to see something that's very obvious and intentional, who funded the lawsuit for NAR? Because real estate commissions have always been negotiable. Buyer's rep agreements have always been there. Who funded the lawsuit? Because when you find out the people it named in the lawsuit got barely anything, but the lawyers got paid, what was the motivation there? Why at now? But then you start to think, okay, if investment groups and hedge funds bought up 40% of the inventory, they're thinking 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road versus a regular person. So they're like, okay, I don't want to have to pay as much commission as it usually costs. So let's go ahead and invest this amount of money. Because if they own trillions in real estate and they got to sell it eventually, think about that if they're paying full commission. They don't want this because they also own the companies like Zillow and that have the 1% agents. So it benefits them from all angles to get into this. Also, if you look at statistics on how many lady realtors there are, it's very heavy in that market. And when realtors are making great money, they're independents. They have power. And if you're going to go attack ladies' rights and women's rights to stuff, a good way to do that is to start trying to limit their ability to earn. And it's an independence factor. Now a person can go study, get their license, get training, invest in it, make some great money, but now you got power. And I think I want everyone to have power. And that's why I'm talking about equity. 2/3 of the wealth we have in our country is tied to equity in homes. The more wealth you have, the more power you have. I want regular people having the power, not corporations, not the people that are wanting to go after the protections of our society. Before we had EPA, there were companies. I used to be in the trash business. I know how this went. Back in the day, they were dumping toxic chemicals in landfills were not regulated. They didn't have the right barriers to stop, seeping toxic chemicals into wastewater. I mean, into drinking water. And it's terrifying. We need these protections to protect us from corporations that do not care about us as people and will run the country and the freaking world into the ground. They're trying to get rid of smog protections and this protections and EPA and this one and that one. Why are they going after regulators? I thought that they were part of the, law and order and family values. Well, how is it family values to not fund child lunches and medical care? Because if you are family values, wouldn't you want to make it easier for people to get better family medical coverage? And kids should eat lunch, shouldn't be starving when they're in school. And people are, who's going to pay for it? Are they having that same energy when we give $100 billion a year in corporate subsidies to the same companies that are posting record profits? It's all tied. I want you guys empowered so that you have your power to vote, get out, do your thing, build equity, retire with confidence. That's why I share this stuff. I'll be posting more frequently. Follow my channel. I usually will save the video and upload it to my YouTube a couple days after. So if you missed the beginning, come back to reference it. I will be covering the markets as the week progresses with the different reports coming out. So feel free to reach out, DM me. On my profile, it has all my links to like my stuff, and go ahead and check back in. But I'll make posts to remind everybody, but it's important. Get out and buy what you can comfortably afford. Don't overspend. Get out of that mindset. If you're living in a 1-bedroom apartment and can comfortably afford that rent, get with a loan officer that will structure deals for you to show you the properties that will get you the same payment so that you are building your own net worth instead of someone else's. Because if you are renting, you are paying a mortgage. It's just not your own. You have the opportunity cost of renting is staggering. If you're paying $1,000, let's call it $2,000 a month, because that's about the average rent in most places right now, $2,000 a month. And if that could get you a $300,000 house, $2,000 a month is $24,000 in a year that you paid in rent. On a house, $300,000 house. In that year, if the property goes up 7%, let's be conservative, that's $21,000 in 1 year. So when you add the $24,000 in rent to the opportunity cost of missing out on that appreciation of $21,000, you're at nearly $50,000 in 1 year loss in opportunity costs by not buying. I don't want you to continue to fall farther and farther behind. Buy what you can comfortably afford. If you're living in a 1-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, buy a condo that's a 1 or 2-bedroom condo, especially if it's under your budget, because then you can turn that into a rental property 12, 24 months from now when you do actually want to buy a little bit bigger property. But at least in that time period, you're building equity through forced savings, through principal balance reduction. Every time you make your payment, you're reducing your principal balance, creating equity, and through appreciation. And I showed you the slide about home price appreciation data. We have a horrible lack of homes right now. Less than 1 million homes available on the market right now, or maybe it's 1 million right now. Back then, when the market crashed in 2007, there was 11 million less buyers in the market than there are right now, but there were 4 million homes available. Think of that. We are in a totally different situation. And as inflation has continued to come down, now the Fed's talking about cutting the Fed fund rate, interest rates are going to come down. That brings it, every 1 point drop brings another 2 to 3 million buyers back to the market. Also increases prices by about 3 to 5%. That's important to know. So let's get ahead of that, get you in, build your own equity, refinance later. But rates have come down significantly. We're talking in the sixes now. And if sellers give concessions, you can get even lower. 2-1, 3-2-1 buy down, seller funded. You can get your rate into the 3s for the first 12 months, then the 4s for the next 12, then the 5s for the next 12, if the markets don't rebound enough to refinance later. But it's a 30-year fixed loan, and the seller funded temporary buy down is an escrow account that the payment difference is drawn from, so that if rates do drop and you refinance, the remaining balance in that escrow account is applied to a principal balance reduction. So you have more control over that money. And there's a lot of sellers that are doing it. Here's a tactic that I'm going to leave you with that I've helped my clients negotiate and communicate with their agent. Find a property that will appraise but had a recent price drop. If it'll appraise for the full amount, go in with full offer price and say, I want the price drop difference as a seller credit to do a rate buy down. In this instance, it was a $25,000 price reduction. So the buyer went in, offered full list, asking for $25,000 buyer concession, which they got. That $25,000 bought their temporary buy down and to a 3-2-1 buy down. Amazing. They saved so much money. And now as rates are coming down, towards the end of the year, we'll refinance and they'll get all of that, the remaining balance from a principal balance reduction. It's phenomenal. But this is what can happen when you're talking with a loan officer who can put together strategies with you to work with your realtor as well. I'm not the only one who can do it. There's tons of great loan officers on this app. I share their information every time I'm on live because I never want you to feel pressure to use me specifically. I'm here to help and earn your trust in business, but go out and interview a bunch of us. Cat Loans, go search her, follow her now. She's phenomenal. Carlos Munoz is on this app. It was his birthday the other day. Go follow him. Interview us. Talk to us. Who works best with your personality and mindset? But let's get you building long-term generational wealth instead of making other people wealthy. Let's get you there so that you can leave something to your family, kids, and build a legacy. Talk to you soon.